So as promised a few weeks ago when I first started this, I thought I was going to go on location and things didn't work out the way I had planned. We had several hikes and then rain and whatever. So I'm on location in a park near my house, just kind of walking around, talking, reading a couple articles. And today we're going to talk about Daniel Horowitz in the Conservative Review is talking about the skinny repeal nonsense and basically Republicans in general, and also some good news from the NRA regarding Second Amendment rights, our rights to keep and bear arms, today on The Common Constitutionalist.
Listening to The Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
So I've actually, I've practiced this a couple of times, kind of walking, talking, reading. It might work, it might not. Maybe I'll have to go inside and do it all over again, but we'll see. So this is from Daniel Horowitz, editor at the Conservative Review. Brilliant kid, brilliant guy. Sorry, kid, my foot. So he says, a devilish side of me is relieved by the fact that numbers of Republican voters are now discovering the obvious. The GOP is to political parties what CNN is to news coverage. And ain't that the truth? After all, the first step to solving a problem is recognizing the severity of the problem. In this case, the incontrovertible problem is that there is not a dime's worth of difference between the two major parties. How long have we, constitutional conservatives, whatever you want to call us, have been preaching that? How long have we been preaching this, and the establishment, other conservative, say, talk show hosts and whatnot, say, no, that's not true. The Republicans do some good things and whatnot. Sure, they do some good things specifically, but overall, their philosophy, it just appears now that there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the two parties. There just isn't. Wow, footing much? Ha! So anyway, he continues. Yesterday, not only did 7 Republicans vote against repealing even part of Obamacare, the skinny, scrawny, puny repeal, shall we call it, there was another vote in which 10 Republicans, now dig this, 10 Republicans expressed solidarity with Medicaid and Obamacare. Rather than providing a vision for patient-centered, market-driven health care, the following 10 Republicans voted, ready, quote, to express the sense of the Senate that Medicaid expansion is a priority and that Obamacare must be improved. So again, they can all talk a good game, and they all do so when it's election time. And they all say repeal, 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 replace, replace, replace. Me personally, the government shouldn't be involved in health care at all. Zero, none, nada. It should be states, it should be individuals, churches, families, whoever. But it shouldn't be the federal government. If states want to do that, that's the states are the laboratories of the nation. They can do whatever the heck they want to do. But the federal government has to stay out of it. That's the constitutional way. All right? But to express, what does they say? Quote, to express the sense of the Senate that Medicaid expansion is a priority and that Obamacare must be improved, not repealed, not replaced, not with anything, but must be improved. Now, these are all Republican senators that voted for this crap, and every one of these people in the past have voted to repeal Obamacare when they knew it didn't count. Capito, West Virginia, Cassidy, Louisiana, Collins, of course, Maine. She's just a liberal Democrat with an R next to her name. Enzi, Wyoming. Gardner, Colorado, Heller, Nevada, McCain, Arizona. Murkowski, Alaska, of course. Portman, Ohio, of course, because their big Medicaid push with, who's the governor? I can't remember. Whatever. Sullivan, Alaska. So the Medicaid program, and now you really got to listen to this. So maybe I'll stop so it's not such a distraction. The Medicaid program is an appalling blot on America's consciousness. Here we go. As late as 1990, nearly 25 years into the program. Okay, so you got 25 years of Medicaid, all right, on the books. There were 22.9 million people enrolled at a cost of $41 billion in 1990, all right? At the end of the Clinton presidency, all right, that's 10 years later, there were 34.5 million people enrolled at a cost of $117 billion, all right? So they added about 11 million people, and it cost them over 3 times more for 11 million extra people. Unbelievable. Now, between Medicaid and CHIP, he writes, there are 74.5 million people enrolled at a cost of $410 billion, plus an additional $150 billion from the states. So you're talking almost $500 billion for Medicaid programs between the federal government and the states for 74.5 million people. That is the most obscene thing I've ever heard. He also goes on to say that we spend this the budget for Medicaid alone, just Medicaid. This isn't health care, this isn't whatever, Medicare, it's just Medicaid. The Medicaid program alone is almost as much as we spend on our entire military budget. What do you even say to something like that? I mean, the absurdity is absolutely staggering. The irresponsibility is absolutely staggering. And you know this stuff, but then you read it from somebody that you trust, like Horowitz, that you know did his homework and got it right and got the facts right. And this is what you come up with. You see this stuff in black and white. Over $500 billion for less than 75 million people. So Horowitz continues, before I have a burst blood vessel. Yet these Republicans have no problems with this, and they don't seem to have any problem with it. They usually aren't asked the question, so they don't have a problem with it. And frankly, as I noted last week at an article he wrote last week, aside from a handful of honest conservatives, most mainstream Republicans are for the status quo. We all knew this. We all warned of this. We've been warning of this. And won't publicly say so. Of course they won't say so. They've got cover from the leadership. That's the point. This whole John McCain thing, when he went up there and he did his stupid thumbs down, drop the mic, and walk off the stage. What a schmo. That was all planned. No one, everyone, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, this thing was planned. They knew it wasn't going anywhere. They frankly didn't want it to go anywhere. McCain is completely insulated. He's a war hero, and now he's dying of brain cancer. Who's going to assail him publicly? Nobody. So he is completely insulated from any criticism from anyone, because you'll be attacked as a hate monger or whatever if you try to attack McCain on policy. Personally, whatever, I don't care. But policy, that's a completely different story. And he went up there, these other senators voted yes, knowing full well they had cover from John McCain. That, in my opinion, that's the way it went down. So as he states, and I reiterated it earlier, Republicans lie to us during elections. Of course they lie to us during elections. All politicians lie to us during elections. Even the most liberal Republicans not only campaigned against Obamacare, but actually sounded a lot like yours truly, Horowitz, in demanding that we address the root cause of healthcare inflation and market distortions. One of his Twitter followers, Restus Rabble, compiled an endless list of Republican lies or campaign lies. In an op-ed from 2015, Lisa Murkowski, the infamous Lisa Murkowski, wrote, "The country needs to address the cost of care, not just force people to buy insurance." That was Lisa Murkowski less than 2 years ago. And here we are. And she's just plodding along with the Democrats and the establishment Republicans, which seems to be most of them, vying for Obamacare. Everything's fine. We have to have assurances. They say this because they know they're never going to get it. Nothing's ever going to pass, so Obamacare is just going to be the go-to position for everybody, which is what they like. They like the status quo. They don't want to upset the apple cart. Somebody may actually get angry at them. And the Republicans, if we know nothing else about Republicans, they know they need to be loved, for sure. Now he continued with a few choice paragraphs after that, but in closing, basically, he is saying what I've been thinking for years and what many constitutional conservatives have been thinking for years, that we don't have a choice here. If this week serves as a wake-up moment to promote a convention of the state and either start a new party or dramatically overhaul the primary process, perhaps this betrayal would even be worth it in the long run. The problem with that is that you also have to get rid of the RNC, you've got to get rid of the election commissions, you've got to overhaul basically everything, because the RNC, as we saw during the last campaign, they control everything. They control where you debate. They control who televised the debates. Hillsdale College wasn't allowed to have a debate. The Blaze wasn't allowed to have a debate. Conservative Review, CRTV, they were turned down flat. Moderators were turned down flat. But NBC, CNN, all those guys, once or twice on Fox, I guess, but who cares? For the most part, it was network and leftist cable shows. They were the ones that were allowed by the RNC to have to do these campaign debates. And so until you change that, and also close all the primaries. Close the primaries. Open primaries are a sewer. They are endemic of the swamp. Anyone can go into a Republican primary and vote in a Republican primary. How on what planet does that make any sense? Answer, no planet. But they set it up that way so the moderates and liberal Republicans can continue to be elected. They can knock out their conservative foes in the primary, and then they're just off to the races. Okay, big money, off to the races. Until we can control that, until we can get rid of the RNC and completely redo everything, the only other option is going to end up being, mark my words, it's going to end up being third party. I've disagreed with Rush Limbaugh for years on this. He thinks that the Republican Party should and must be changed from the inside. It's not going to be changed from the inside. The Republican Party are the Whigs, period. They have to die. It's that simple. They have to go away. That's it. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with some good news from the NRA. Yay!
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
And welcome back. We have changed venues. I'm walking the rails like a hobo. But this ain't hobo news. This is good news from the NRA. This is an NRA newsletter that I get. And I'm going to read you some good news about the Second Amendment and gun rights. The wind can be cooperative. In a major development in the ongoing effort to restore the Second Amendment in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Court of Appeals of the District of Columbia Circuit issued an opinion on Tuesday that would effectively require D.C. officials to make concealed carry licenses available on a shall-issue basis. The court's decision comes in the combined cases of Wren versus D.C. and Grace versus D.C. Following the landmark case of the District of Columbia versus Heller, and we all know that, D.C. versus Heller, which recognized the Second Amendment right to have operable handguns in the home for self-defense. Okay. The district retaliated by banning carrying of firearms outside the home. Gee, what a shocker. Who wouldn't have seen that one coming? But then a lower federal court stepped in and said, that's unconstitutional too. That's against the Second Amendment. The lower federal court found D.C.'s carry ban also violated the Second Amendment, but rather than comply with the ruling, D.C. created a sham system for concealed carry permits that requires applicants to show good or proper reasoning for carrying the concealed weapon. How absurd. So this is what liberals do. This is what the gun control freakazoids do. They will find a way. They will never give up. They'll never surrender. Galaxy Quest, Tim Allen. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a good movie. I think it's from the 90s. At any rate, I love Tim Allen. I like that movie. Bring back Last Man Standing too, by the way. Great show. At any rate, we continue. Where do we continue? Let's have it down, but a good reason. This includes a special need for self-protection, distinguishable from the general community. That's what they say. A job with duties requiring the transport of large amounts of amula, cash, and or valuables, or the need to protect a close relative who cannot provide for his or her own special self-defense needs. I guess it's somebody who's injured, somebody who's paralyzed in a wheelchair, I don't know whatever. So they can't hold a weapon or something, who knows. Practically speaking, this means the vast majority of law-abiding people will simply want to carry a handgun in self-defense in ordinary circumstances are automatically disqualified. And there you go. That's what the left is after. They want to disqualify as many people as they can just possibly do and still just kind of skirt the law. That's what they like to do, just skirt the law. So, licensed concealed carry, moreover, is the only option for ordinary people to lawfully carry a loaded, accessible firearm for self-defense outside a person's home or in business in D.C. So, in effect, the ban on carry already found unconstitutional remains. Of course it's unconstitutional. The Second Amendment, here we go, the right to keep and bear firearms. The right to keep means to own or have. The right to bear means you can carry it around with you. It doesn't say the right to keep and bear around the house. It doesn't say the right to keep and bear when you're hunting bear or hunting at all. It has nothing to do with hunting. It has everything to do with individual self-defense. Wren and Grace, that's for those two lower court decisions, or lower court plaintiffs, therefore presented the appellate court with the questions of whether the Second Amendment's right to bear arms for self-defense extends beyond the home. How, in what universe is this even a question? I mean, honestly. And if so, whether district officials could nonetheless deny the right to all but a select hand-picked few. The court's answer to those questions was a resounding yes and no in that order. I turned the page. Well, they say respectively, but whatever. The D.C. Circuit analogized the district's current concealed carry licensing regime to the ban on keeping handguns at issue in Heller. The issue, the court stated, is not whether a few select people could exercise the right, but whether it was available to responsible, law-abiding people in ordinary circumstances. Duh. Can I get a duh? It's just... This is, you know what, the heck with it. I'm not going to bother to talk about lawyers or the legal system and how screwed up it is in this country. We'll leave that maybe for another day, maybe never. I think it's obvious to everybody. Unfortunately, the court's order is effectively on hold while district officials determine their next legal move, of course. This could mean asking for a rehearing before the full D.C. Circuit or appealing directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. So they're just gonna continue to poke and prod until they find a court, until they find something, a loophole, something that they can lock onto and say, okay, Heller said you can carry your weapons around the house, but you can't take them outside. Although these lower court decisions, this is a good sign. It's not perfect news, but it's a good sign that the courts are upholding the Constitution. Remember the Second Amendment? Yeah, okay. Now there's arguments about the Second Amendment because the right to keep and bear arms, and then you have the in a well-regulated militia and so on, and they combine the two. But what nobody talks about is what the heck is a comma used for? A comma is used in a sentence to separate clauses, to separate ideas from one another in the whole body of the sentence. And so that's what, in a well-regulated militia, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that there's a comma in between that. It doesn't just run together. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed as long as you're in a militia. Not to mention the fact that state militias and community militias, whatever, during the revolutionary times were all the people. The founders said so. They wrote about it. It was as simple as that. So to that point, I thought I would go back and find a little snippet for you folks about the Second Amendment from the guys in that period of time when the Second Amendment was written. A guy, George Tucker, was a lawyer, a Revolutionary War militia officer, a legal scholar, and later a U.S. District Court appointed by James Madison in 1813. In 1803, he wrote of the Second Amendment in the 1803 Blackstone's Commentaries on Laws of England. Tucker writes, commit this to memory, if you will. Tucker writes, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and this without any qualification as to their condition or degree, as is the case in the British government, where they had already confiscated all the weapons from the citizenry. So the right to keep and bear arms, according to Tucker, in the Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, which were quoted many times and referred to many times by the founders in his 1803 commentaries, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and this without any qualification as to their condition or degree. You got that? He further continued, this may be considered as true, the Second Amendment, or the right to keep and bear arms, this may be considered as true as the true palladium of liberty. The right of self-defense is the first law of nature. In most governments, it has been the study of rulers to confine this right with the narrowest limits possible. This defines Washington, D.C. This absolutely defines Washington, D.C. That the rulers to confine this right with the narrowest limits possible. Whenever standing armies are kept, and this is important, this is what Thomas Jefferson wrote about. Whenever standing armies are kept, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms is, under any color or pretext whatsoever, prohibited, liberty, if not already annihilated, is on the brink of destruction. And that's what these people knew all the way back in revolutionary times, that this day would come, because they had seen it before in Europe. It had already come in Europe. That's the point about this. That's what's so important about the Second Amendment. That's why it's the Second Amendment. It's the big stick that allows you to protect the rest of the amendments. That's basically it for the citizens. So that's about all I've got today. On location, hobo style, railroad tracks. This has been kind of fun, actually. Although in the first segment, I must admit that I forgot to put bug spray on. And boy, howdy, it's all I could do was not to slap an itch the whole time. So I'm a little kind of proud of myself in that regard. So this is a Common Constitutionalist signing off. And maybe we'll try this again next week. Maybe we'll be back indoors. Depends on the weather, actually. See ya.